Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is April 21st, not YC125, and it is the Eve Universe Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How's it going, guys? Good to see you all. Thank you for coming. Make sure to hit that like button if you're, subscribe if you're new, whatever. We are here to talk about EVE Online on this Friday. Now you can hear me. Hey, right? I'm right,
yes,
right?
I can.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me on the show.
So, yes. All right. Well, so I have your article up here, or I have your latest post on the forums saying, turn your CSM vote into free shipping for all of 2023. Obviously, the CSM campaign series hasn't, or the CSM cycle hasn't quite begun yet. Probably should have by now that I think about it. You have an interesting take of this. You are a hauler for a group called GSOL.
Galactic Hauling Solutions, yes.
Which is a group that probably most people haven't even heard of yet. So before we get any deeper than that, let's talk a little bit about GSOL, okay? Who are you guys?
Been around for 10 years almost. Shipped about 14,000 loads of cargo over that time. And it's been low sec and high sec flat rate.
So if you've been around all this time, why aren't you like Red Frog or PushX, and why are those well-known names and you less well-known? Do you know?
That's a good question. We've always been word of mouth and have a pretty steady customer base. If more people came, we'd ship more stuff. Right now, our delivery times are almost under 12 hours on the average.
I can confirm that we use your guys' hauling services quite a bit. Not that this was related to this at all. It just so happens to be, and that's how you know me, or were able to reach out to me. But you guys provide hauling particularly through a deal with the Gallente militia, correct?
We have been supporting Gal-Mail Alliance since June of last year. It was a similar arrangement. There was free shipping being given to all the members.
Right, and that's still ongoing.
It is. We've had 3,000 contracts delivered so far under that program, and it's going strong.
What led you to support the Gallente specifically?
They had a pretty enlightened leader who approached Galactic Hauling about spring last year, and we made a formal arrangement that just blossomed and kept becoming bigger and bigger, more and more cargo. It was a bit of a challenge. Galactic Hauling's a fairly simple, straightforward courier service. We spun off a Citadel hauling that was more tailored to what the Gallente needed.
You haul flat rate anywhere in high sec and low sec?
This is correct.
So, for instance, somebody could use you to get their stuff out of like one of those asset safety systems that are always so notorious to get things out of?
I'd say at least a quarter of our business is that, and we serve every single system that has an NPC station in it.
How big is your staff?
We got about almost a dozen at this point. There's a smaller core that really do the heavy lifting. I'm one of them.
That's really cool. All right. And have you been doing this the whole 10 years?
Yes, I have. I've been the CEO for that whole time.
Why? If I might ask.
Hauling.
You like hauling?
It has a lot of complexity here. It's a very simple, straightforward activity. I love it. I like to keep it simple, and I like to spend as little time doing other things than hauling. However, I feel that there's been a lot of issues that have come up over the years for haulers regarding CCP changing things on us. Jump fatigue would be a good example. And I feel that running for CSM will let me address some of these issues I've stored up over all the years. I've also been a moderator in Haulers channel, which gives me a pretty broad view of all haulers, not just the jump raiders.
How much of your hauling is in high sec, would you say?
Most is actually probably low sec. We'll ship in high sec, but the rates are a little high for that. I wouldn't claim we're competitive. I think once your cargo starts reaching around 7 billion and your 50, gate jumps through, that's about when we start becoming competitive.
So okay, so you're more for those places that not everybody's doing.
Right, and asset safety systems, the corners of the EVE universe until you get out into nullsec, and we leave that to the alliances. Though we're ready to partner with them, just like we partnered with Gal-Mail and handle anything they're ready to outsource to us.
So let's take a step back and, or let's talk a little bit about the CSM and why you might be wanting to get on it. The Council of Stellar Management is an organization, for those of you who may not know, of elected players. Every year we get to do a big election where every Omega account gets a vote, and we vote in representatives. Now, the rules may change from year to year about how the voting necessarily works, but in general, that's the case, and it's not first past the post, but it's a single transferable vote system. So we get somewhere between 10 to 12, I think, representatives each year, who then are our official representatives. They sign an NDA and agreements with CCP. They're flown out to Iceland at least once a year to meet with CCP and have a whole big summit where they're shown a whole bunch of stuff and are able to give guidance and direction and otherwise advocate on behalf of the player base towards CCP and help CCP process the vast fire hose of feedback that they get on a daily basis. So while the thing is that the null blocks traditionally have a pretty organized voting system, which means that they secure a good portion of the spots, but there's always is somewhere between 2 to 4 spots that are definitely up for grabs. The idea is that who do we want at those tables in order to give CCP that kind of information, which generally speaking, we need people that are subject matter experts, that are able to give good feedback, that are hopefully are not necessarily too biased, et cetera, et cetera. With all that said, in your 10 years of hauling experience, you've decided that now you want to be on the CSM. This is the first time ever running for CSM, right?
Yes, this is true.
So what has led you to want to do it this year? And this is not your official interview, by the way. I usually do interviews. I don't know if I'm going to do them this year. Some of the questions might bleed over, but either way, carry on.
Sure. In my opinion, when it comes to issues involving haulers and what everyone does, shipping, the CCP often sort of overlooks the impact. If you'd like an example of this, when Edencom and Trig were introduced, they ended up putting out cyanojammers in all the asset safety systems. As a jump freighter pilot, which is what I do, I now had the requirement to go kill it, and then they went and started putting defenders, NPC defenders there. It became an enormous headache. I really don't think they understood all the implications as they rolled that out. That would be a spot where I would have piped up and said, hey, you really need to consider the implications here. I remember even one time where one of those cyanojammers got dropped right in front of a citadel, and now the citadel shot anyone who showed up to clear it.
I wonder if they would just have responded in that hypothetical, if they would have just said like, well, that's emergent gameplay, and that's a problem for the player bases to solve, right? I mean, obviously, eventually they pulled it back, but what would you contend to those arguments?
Well, I would point out that when it came to that citadel sitting off the cyano-jammer and preventing anyone from getting near it, I opened a ticket and they did say that was not intended and that was a problem. So I think they might have modified things at that point. I'm not sure where they could no longer drop nearby. So there are times where a little bit of feedback goes a long ways. When it comes to shipping, which is what everyone does, the contracting mechanism has needed an overhaul for countless years, in my opinion. The fact you can't triple wrap hampers every nullsec alliance in how they can safely and in a collateralized manner move cargo through, so both the shipper, the hauler, and everyone is protected from any shenanigans. Triple wrapping would change a lot of that. Additionally, I think shippers would like some flexibilities. I can go over that if you like.
No, on the note of the triple wrapping, do you really think that that's a design decision, or do you think that that's a technical limitation? I've always interpreted it as a technical limitation.
It could be a technical limitation, but I'd certainly like some attention to be paid to that and whether we can get around it. We've gotten around other technical limitations.
That's true.
Like the 200 items per contract. It's now 500. They figured out they were wrong.
Well, I mean, systems also get more powerful, but like, for example, you used to not be able to log out to the login screen, right? Like, these things do require large amounts of effort for very little actual gain, but at a certain point, they're necessary for the upkeep of the game. So it might be time for that. Although I feel like the concern with contracting overall, and I think that this will lead into your next point, is that like every single time you talk about contracting, it's like, well, the whole thing needs revision. It is instant and complete scope explosion. Like, nobody wants to take on that task. It's like, and now we get to rebuild the entire market, right? Like, how do you think we can deal with the contract system in a way where we can actually deal with it? And, how can we, what is it, eat the whale? What is the expression?
Chop it up, I guess. I don't know. Just manageable pieces. I think there's some low hanging fruit that's waiting there to be fixed. When it comes to what I see in Hauler's channel, I see shippers wanting to offer bonuses. That means if you get it there within the next hour, because of course we have the limitation of 24 hours is the shortest time. But if you get in there in the next hour, I'll give you 100 million. But it's a promise on faith. And whether it really actually happens, well, that's, that can be that spot where they could cheat the hauler. You could build that into the contracting mechanism. You could even make it graduated so that you could say half of it if in the first 4 hours, all of it if it's in the first 2 hours. And this would allow the contracting mechanism to stay the same way with this added feature, with this add-on.
I actually really like that suggestion because it's one of those things that you can isolate it specifically to courier contracts. It doesn't touch on all the other kinds of contracts and stuff like that. That is the kind of, like, I agree that that's probably a pretty decent low-hanging fruit. From the other direction, though, like, have you played Eve Echoes at all?
No, I can't say I have. I
okay.
The basic game.
Yeah, Eve Echoes
for 15 years.
Eve Echoes has subtle differences that make it more mobile friendly. One of which is that there's no high-sec ganking, which kind of makes hauling weird. But in addition to that, hauling isn't done through personal contracts. Like, I can buy an item in Jita when I'm in, somewhere in Gallente space, and it'll give me the option to go pick it up for myself or drop it off at the nearest market hub. Like, each constellation has its, or region has the regional hub or whatever. Basically, I can order it to be moved, and then that puts up basically hauling contracts by the NPCs to players to pick up and move. They kind of abstract the whole thing rather than this is my actual package. It's more like you tell an NPC you want it moved, and then the NPC puts up an NPC order of a thing, and then when that gets moved, your stuff is moved.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
There's a short version to that if you want to know.
Sure.
Is that essentially interbus?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think interbus might have been the intention long ago, but I'm speculating a lot when I say that.
Well, my question, I guess, is do you think that that would be a better solution? Is that the kind of thing that we would want to go? Or do you like the idea of, like, the way that contracts are, generally speaking, right now?
Personally, I like the contracting, but I've always thought somewhere along the line CCP might ruin my day and introduce Interbus, and oh well, there goes the whole market, right? I think they see it as an interesting career option. I'm not sure why they didn't include it in air career. This would be another example of where I in CSM I would have said, come on, hauling, there's plenty of people in that career.
I mean, I think that the goal would be, like, distribution missions are actually people's stuff moving from market to market.
Sure, that'd be cool.
Rather than having people, like, individually contract it.
Yeah, I think that'd be wonderful.
Okay, so you would be pro having Interbus being an intermediary as long as everything is still hauled by players?
Sure, we could do that too. I think that's a interesting way to restructure it. It almost seems like you're moving towards a union in a sense, right?
Well, so the thing is that, like, right now you just said that, like, the reward is built on trust. So the question is how much, really that's all that the contract is, adding rules to trust rather than just like a gentleman's agreement.
Exactly. Standardizing. And you're right. This would be another step towards standardizing it, and I agree with it. I think that'd be a good direction.
But if Eve is a sandbox, which is about interaction between players, shouldn't those opportunities to scam or screw over or do individual things or whatever be preserved?
I think that's fine too. It's a sandbox. I agree. It's richer for that. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to delivering stuff, I think the one thing I would keep in mind is it underpins almost all activities. So maybe this is an area that deserves some thought about whether standardizing further would enhance more people's ability to play the game.
Yeah,
right?
I think that, well, I mean, there are definitely people that would just get rid of hauling altogether and just allow people to move things by paying for it or whatever. But I think that people don't necessarily appreciate the fact that people like you really enjoy your profession.
But we could still take a step towards standardization, or higher level of standardization, and see if that causes more players to join. I mean, this is exactly what the CSM's about and what CCP's interested in. If they saw a 20% jump because more standardization and hauling brought these people in, I think it's got to be considered. We want the game to be viable.
Wouldn't the knee-jerk reaction to that be that the reason why haulers are not really getting into the game is because of ganking?
Well, ganking serves a purpose. I'm not sure I approve of it, but having been ganked countless times. But I will say that if there are people who are sloppier at hauling, who maybe aren't attentive, sit on autopilot, any of the above, the weaker haulers are removed by this ganking. And that's kind of what makes the richness of the sandbox, right? And they come up with new ways to do it.
Right. Yeah, no, I like that attitude. Do you feel that haulers have enough tools in their toolbox to deal with things like ganking?
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that, because having done this for 10 years, it was a much simpler activity long before jump fatigue. And, well, yeah, and certainly when the jump freighters showed up, it got a lot simpler. I was looking for things to become more complex. It was almost getting boring to me. And then they finally gave me 3 low slots, right? And a bunch of things you could put in it, but I never quite saw the need. And then as each step forward by the gankers made things more complicated, I had to learn new techniques to evade them. And I started using those low slots. And now, I'm shuffling stuff in and out all the time. So I think this is good.
Very cool. All right, great. Let's see.
Besides, I've got competitors, right?
I think that that's actually a good reason why to have someone like you on the CSM. I don't know if, traditionally we've had people like Mike Azariah be able to be an advocate for, those kind of high sec or non-standard play styles and such, including hauling. But as I said, like the knee-jerk reaction with hauling is that like it's a nuisance to a lot of people. And like CCP obviously knows that people do hauling, but it's something that gets talked a lot about. But I question how much the people in the CSM, as they are dedicated haulers themselves, rather than knowing a lot about hauling because they manage haulers, or they do the hauling for their group. Even if that's extensive, that's different than having a public hauling service like this. Does that make sense? I think that having somebody there like you could both advocate for those like what needs to happen for haulers, but also advocate against anything that would be detrimental to haulers, as the broader population see it as a nuisance that needs to be dealt with, whereas one person's nuisance is another person's profit, right?
This is true.
All right. Well, I mean, that's really cool.
I don't want to seem closed-minded. Like, I'm not going to be on CSM to keep things the way they are. I understand that things have to change, and maybe we move towards standardization. Maybe it simplifies, my part of the game that I'm interested in. But if it benefits the game, I see why.
Well, it's also important because as CCP made their changes through Scarcity and Beyond, one thing that really struck to me was that CCP has trended towards this paradigm of exchange, right? No one area of space has everything it needs. There's this stronger and stronger demand for trade and movement of goods from one place to another in order to actually produce stuff. I think that hauling is only going to become more important. And so that's really cool. And again, I really appreciate everything that you do for the Gal Mill in that. Now,
happy to help out.
If you become a CSM, though, you have a special extra thing to get people to vote for you.
I do. I have a program that was just released yesterday and goes through the end of the election.
Okay.
It's free shipping.
It says free shipping for... Is it free shipping for all of 2023? Or is it free shipping for all?
Free shipping for everyone who comes to Galactic Hauling, makes a courier contract paid, and that gets you on the list. If I'm elected and successfully take a seat, I will haul one of your loads every month, every calendar month, for free. Just make it 0 reward. We'll check you're on the list, and we'll move your cargo for free for the rest of 2023.
How are you going to be on the CSM if you're moving all this free goods?
I have other guys. I got other haulers that can handle this.
Well, I'm glad. I'm sure that they are super stoked that you are volunteering them. No, just kidding.
They're super stoked that I'm going to pay them out of my wallet to move the free stuff.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, so basically, you get 12 free hauls. So Beacon Boy saves the day. The I have stuff in asset safety and low sec candidate. Is that pretty much?
That's true. Or if you just want to participate, you could just move one trit from GIA to perimeter. You've got your contract, your paid contract in there. You're on the list.
No, I'm saying you're the candidate for people with stuff in asset safety.
Yes.
So that way they can get it all moved out.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you're planning on betraying your alliance within the next year, you may want to consider voting for Beacon Boy Saves the Day.
Well, I've moved a lot of strange cargo over the years. We do peak occasionally.
All right, man. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Did I miss anything?
No, you got all the good stuff there. I hope people come to channel GHSOL, Galactic Hauling Solutions. Got a little FAQ there. If you have any further questions and some terms and conditions, come on by, check it out, see if you want to make that paid contract, and I hope you vote for me when it comes time.
What is your flat rate, given the fact that I've never had to pay it?
Well, we're a jump freighter outfit, so we have a fair amount of expenses and a pretty expensive ship. Our lowest rate is 210 million, which may seem expensive. But you'll also note that there is a nice comparator that shows you that all other jump freighter hauling is significantly more expensive.
Is it the full 200 million for the one trade?
Well, it's 210 million to create a paid contract. We will move up to 4 billion of your cargo any distance, and the cargo does have to fit in 360,000 meters cubed.
So I would recommend moving more than just one trade then.
Yes, but the whole point is if you want to sort of do a little gamble with 210 million, you can just make a simple contract and we'll get you right on that list. Don't feel
Sounds good to me. All right, man. Thanks for popping by. This is Beacon Boy Saves the Day, who is running for CSM. So hopefully we'll see more from him.
And hopefully I'll see you in the channel Galactic Hauling Solutions. That's GHSOL. Thanks very much.
07.